It is Monday already. Where do the weekends go?
I feel like they're going south for the winter. They just keep leaving us. They don't come back. And they go to the drugstore and they never come back. I don't know.
It was a quick weekend, but the weather was absolutely beautiful. I hope you got outside. I know you guys did Friday night football. How was that?
That was actually really nice. It was a really good night for football. It was breezy but warm. It wasn't one of those frigid, freezing, rainy nights like we usually have this time of the year for football. But this week will be a little different. But last week was really nice. The football game was interesting, to say the very least. It was not the best showing for either team, I wouldn't say. Definitely, if week one didn't show many growing pains, week two definitely did. But it was a really, really good game when it came down to it. So that was nice. And then, the weather over the weekend was absolutely beautiful, nice and warm, not too humid. Not a cloud in the sky. I got out for a while yesterday with my dad and my brother and helped around the house there, and that was really nice, and ended up being a nice weekend.
That's nice that you got outside, Tyler, because Tyler works too much.
I do.
But I will say, I think it's a great service that you guys are providing this year more than ever before. Obviously, you've done the football games for the Lakers in the past. However, this year, because so many people can't actually be there in person, I think it's a great service that you guys are doing for the community. So thank you. Plus, sports is Tyler's passion, and I will say, Tyler, did you watch the game, the Lions, yesterday?
I only saw part of it because I distracted myself by helping around the place at my dad's. I spent the day over there helping him out as I often do, and so I was out there with him and my brother for a while, and we just lost track of time and lost track of the Lions. And you know what? I think it's a good combination because they ended up winning the game. I only watched the last 11 minutes of the game.
That's all you needed.
That's all you needed.
You actually only needed the last 30
Ronnie
seconds.
Dolled it, and I watched the last quarter of the game because that's all that matters. And that's where the Lions make or break their magic.
It is so true, though. It doesn't matter. The Lions could be up 50 points in the first half.
No, the fourth quarter.
And coming in, they're going to lose. So pay attention to the fourth quarter, and that's how it happens. And I will say, I was doubtful. I thought the Lions were actually going to lose again yesterday, but they didn't. They pulled out a win. I thought they would be 0-3, but they're not. Congratulations to the Lions, but boy, did that come down to the wire. It's exciting. So if anything, win or lose for the Lions, we have to say the fourth quarter of their games are pretty exciting.
And you know what? A big congratulations to Lions head coach Matt Patricia on his 10th win as the head coach of the Detroit Lions. That's a great accomplishment for any head coach in their first season. Congratulations on you taking 3 years to do it.
Yeah, a little sarcasm there. It's going to be interesting, though, to see if he continues to keep his position with the Lions coming out of this season.
Probably.
We'll see. So I hope everyone, thank you to the Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith. Hope everyone out there had a great weekend, got outside, enjoyed the beautiful weather, celebrated the Lions' win. It was a win and win for Michigan all around with the weather and the Lions and football and all other things. Here on the Oakland County Megacast, we have a great show coming up for you. Today we are going to be, I will say I called my husband about this first interview. So we have a lot of interesting guests for you today here on the Oakland County Megacast. We'll be talking comics. We'll be talking voting. We'll be talking upcoming elections and all things politics, as well as we have the Michigan Public Service Commission on with us today, and also the travel industry. So a lot to get to today on the Oakland County Megacast. But first, we're going to go ahead and start off with some of the quick headlines to bring you up to date for all of you that decided to blow off the weekend when it came to news. Let's just go ahead and bring you up to date. And you can find the latest headlines on CivicCenterTV.com. We update the headlines each and every morning. This actually kind of came down Friday as what we call in the news industry, Friday afternoon news dump. Governor Gretchen Whitmer has now paved the way for more extensive opening of concert venues here in the state of Michigan. That's going to start October 9th. It's going to be still far from business as usual, though, for the struggling clubs and theaters. Under the executive order that was issued Friday afternoon, the governor is going to permit attendance at indoor performance venues to grow to 20 people per 1,000 square feet for open spaces, 20% of capacity for fixed seating situations. Attendance, though, is going to be capped at 500. Cost of staffing, event insurance, and so many other factors mean it's unlikely we're going to actually see many traditional concerts at area music spots. And this is really coming out of just this morning. We saw the listing, the Majestic Theater, downtown Detroit, iconic theater here in the area, as well as the Garden Bowl, the Alley Deck and Bar. Plus, it has the Magic Stick. It went up for sale. So while she is now starting to make efforts to reopen some of these last remaining venues, they're saying it's not going to be enough for them to actually reopen and to get a profit. So they're saying up to 90% of some of these music venues, especially the smaller independent ones, could be closing due to the pandemic.
Yeah, well, we talked previously with Mark Ridley from Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, who it's not a music venue, but it's an entertainment venue, and he essentially said because of the size of their operation and the profitability of their organization that anything under half capacity is really just not even viable for them to reopen. That's certainly going to be the case with music venues that tend to be even larger than that, and especially independent music venues where usually the acts that are performing there are not as famous and aren't drawing as large of a crowd as some of the bigger venues, and they don't have the capital behind them that some of those large corporate venues do have. So the smaller capacity certainly doesn't help them as much more than them being closed. So maybe they open for specific shows here or there, or private showings, and as they can with these new executive orders and these new rules. But in a general sense, it still isn't really exactly what they're looking for at this time.
Yeah, also kind of coming out of that, she slipped in that students that are K through 5, they are going to have to wear a mask in the classrooms. Now, previously, that had only been for grades 6 through 12, but you kind of slipped that in that the younger ones need to wear a mask too. That's going to start October 5th.
Yeah, good luck to their teachers. Oh, man, I mean, if you couldn't feel any worse for elementary school teachers trying to keep their students focused during this time of the year, especially in-person learning, where you have more direct control over that situation. That's going to be really tough for them.
Bless their hearts. We have so many heroes growing out of this pandemic, don't we? A great article this morning, Tyler, in the Free Press about concerns over the virus outbreak and how it could impact Michigan's Apple industry. COVID-19 could take a bite on Michigan's Apple industry. I added that. I had to. I'm sorry.
Nice.
The industry relies heavily on human labor, and an outbreak could bring a farm's harvest to a halt. State now requires owners to test workers to help prevent the spread of the virus, and some farmers say that has made it hard for them to get enough workers because some migrant workers are reluctant to be tested. Michigan apples are sold in 32 states, 18 countries. Crop is valued at more than $250 million. I think we forget, because we're known here in the Metro Detroit area as the automotive state in the industry, but agriculture is a multi-billion-dollar business here for the state of Michigan. And now they're saying it could impact the apple harvesting, which we rely on so much. So great article in today's Free Press. I invite everyone to read the entire article, which is very lengthy but very thorough as well. And they kind of look at all aspects of this issue. But one of the big things, like apples go hand in hand with the fall time.
They do. And it's a big part of of course, the cider mill industry here in the state of Michigan, which is directly connected to that and plays a heavy part in that supply chain, of course. So that would certainly impact a lot of our local cider mills. It would impact a lot of our local orchards, of course, where people go apple picking regularly during the fall season. And, of course, it'll impact the agricultural industry as well, as the harvest would be severely impacted by many workers not being able to go there, not being able to pick these apples and bring them down the supply chain, which would then affect those orchards that are producing these apples immensely as they get further on into the season, because you only have a certain window of time to harvest these and distribute them before that clock starts ticking and those apples are going bad. So, if you lose this, if you aren't picking a quarter of your crop, a tenth of your crop, you're losing it.
Yeah, and that's a lot of money. I will say when we were up in Traverse City last week, and we made sure to stop by some of the local farms to pick up produce and the apples that were picked right then and there. And it's beautiful. It's great that we have that. But I will say sometimes I think living down here in the Metro Detroit area, we forget about the agricultural impact that our state has on the economy, but also across the country as well. So now the state of Michigan, just so you know, that they're not putting out the new coronavirus numbers on Sundays. However, for the first time since late April, Michigan's public health officials reported more than 900 new coronavirus infections for 3 straight days. But this is why this is important, because you've got to look at numbers in perspective. State reported 901 confirmed cases Saturday, bringing the total to 121,427 confirmed cases total. There's another 12,946 probable cases, but higher case counts have not triggered higher rates of hospitalizations, and positive test results are less than 3% of that positivity rate. So they're saying that the state of Michigan now, Tyler, we're up to testing about 39,000 people daily, but also there are so many younger people that are testing positive. And we've seen the outbreak, obviously, on the college campuses. We've been telling you about it here a lot on the Oakland County Megacast. And the younger population doesn't seem to be as severely impacted by the coronavirus.
Yeah, it's the majority of the outbreaks as of the last several months, but it's not nearly having as large of an impact on them as it did previously on the last major group before them, which tended to be an older population. Part of that is because young people's immune systems seem to be more apt to battle this disease and not let it progress to the point where there are severe symptoms. Then maybe that fosters a little bit of willful ignorance on their part to where the younger people's mind of invincibility kind of plays a part, and they aren't as careful as they probably should be. But it goes back to the same adage we've been saying since the very beginning. Protect yourself, not for yourself, but for other people. Try to do what you can so that you're not making yourself at risk of being infected, because you're likely to infect somebody else who will infect other people, and that's how viruses spread like wildfire.
Right. So again, obviously, it's not about the individual. It's about the people that you could be giving it to, as well as your loved ones. But again, civiccentertv.com. Check out the headlines each and every morning, as well as we put links at the top of the page to all of the resources that you need, so you can do your own research, keep up with all the latest data from CDC, as well as the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and all of our local municipalities. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we're going to be checking in with Curtis Sullivan. He is the owner and operator of Vault of Midnight, the comic book world. That's one area I don't think that we've really dipped our toes into during the Megacast, so it'll be interesting to hear about him and how things are surviving in the comic book world during the pandemic. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on, to help stop the spread of COVID-19, wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Wear a mask.
The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast, the Monday edition. I'm excited to get to this next guest. We haven't actually dipped into the world of comic books during this pandemic, and I have to go ahead and let Curtis Sullivan know comic books rule my life because my husband collects them. Thank you for being on the Oakland County Megacast. How are you today?
I'm real well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So he gave me a list of questions to ask you, but let's just start off with, you have locations throughout Metro Detroit, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor. I know so many of the comic book stores, like other retail outlets, had to shut down during the pandemic. You're reopened now. How are things going?
They're going pretty well. We, obviously had to change a lot of things to accommodate kind of the world we find ourselves in. So masks are required. We have limited amount of folks we can let into each store based on the square footage. So that we've got to kind of control traffic at the door. And so it's changed our day-to-day quite a bit and has affected sales overall. Things are looking okay, but, definitely they could be better for sure.
Comic book people, so many of them rely on the old school format of let me get the book and flip the pages, the actual comic book. However, I would imagine during the pandemic, online versions have been coming out for a few years now. Did you see an increase in that avenue of online versus the actual paperback?
Not really. No, all the data is pretty hand in hand. Like digital's is there and exists, but it really hasn't. It's grown, but it hasn't really been at the expense of like the print stuff. So, they've kind of grown simultaneously, which is really, really nice. They kind of complement each other. So that's awesome. Yeah, we launched a web store recently and really saw lots of orders coming through. Like it went well, better than we expected. So we're really excited and encouraged by that.
Curtis Sullivan with us. He is the owner and operator of Vault of Midnight Comic Store with us on the Oakland County Megacast today. And Curtis, like any other business that's operating right now with people entering and exiting the stores, they're regularly cleaning the materials and the surfaces in the store. And with a comic book store, people like to explore. They like to look at books that maybe they haven't tried before, they haven't looked through before, they haven't followed regularly and explore them. And so that's a lot of interaction with these materials. But you also have to measure on top of that sanitizing these materials could potentially be detrimental to the physical books. How do you balance that in keeping those surfaces clean but not sacrificing or putting at risk the materials that you have on hand?
Sure. Yeah, we all different kinds of things. So all of our single issue comic books are actually in plastic. They're bagged and boarded, so they're not those are very easily cleaned. That's a big part of our inventory. All of our board game inventory all is shrink wrapped and stuff, so that's also pretty easy to clean. Graphic novels and stuff like that's a little trickier, but we have some special cleaners that and disinfectants that we're able to use without damaging the product. But that is definitely a concern with what we sell, for sure. If folks want a mint condition item when they're buying a comic book or a collectible, for sure.
So what do you think the future of the comic book industry is going to be coming out of the pandemic? Will it have a swing up or a swing down because maybe more people were at home and got interested in it? Or do you feel like going forward you lost some people because they couldn't come in weekly to get that new updated comic?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. We don't know yet. Early indicators are that more people are reading stuff, physical stuff, because we're all in our homes more and we have more time to engage in that. activity. So early signs are good. Do they come back and buy from us, or do they buy from an online retailer? That's a question. But for us, we're getting close to kind of sales levels that we were seeing before the shutdown, even with the limited capacity. That's a part of that is thanks to our web store that we've added. But yeah, maybe we can get back there. We'll see. I'm encouraged. Let's say that. But time will tell, obviously. Yeah.
That's good that you have encouragement. And we are seeing some of the smaller independent retailers have had to switch how they operate. And as you just mentioned, you had a web store. Do you think that's going to be the positive coming out of this? And will you continue it from this point forward?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The web store is definitely here to stay. And yeah, and it encourages customers who are regulars to interact with us in that way. So, obviously we'll never be able to compete with giant online discounters. We sell everything for regular price on our web store, so we're not competing in that way. But we are able to put our store safely in front of folks who are already our shoppers, and it seems like they're taking advantage of it. And it feels like kind of more broadly, people are interested in doing that and supporting their local bookstores or retailers in that way. So, I'm extremely encouraged by that.
Are you offering any curbside pickup? Because I understand comics typically come out one day a week, and maybe you have regular customers that do get the same books week after week after week. Are you offering them that service?
Yeah, we are. So Wednesday is New Comic Book Day every week. You're absolutely right. It's an exciting day every single week. And we do offer mail order and curbside service at all of our locations, for sure. Yes. And people do take advantage of it, which is excellent. Most of the cities that we're in have designated parking spots in front of our shops where folks can just, pull right in, and they call and we run it out to them.
Curtis Sullivan with us. He is the owner and operator of Vault of Midnight with us on the Oakland County Megacast, joining us today all throughout the local area. Curtis, Ronnie and I aren't comic book people, but we know a few people. We work with a couple people, and Ronnie, of course, her husband Woody, is a comic book fanatic as well. So for those that maybe are not into comic books, but maybe are interested in getting into them at this point in time, what are some titles that you suggest that they can explore right now, or interesting new titles that are out there for those that are comic book regulars to explore?
Yeah, so let me say that Woody sounds like my kind of guy. He's got good taste, obviously, likes comic books. But for those who are not already into the hobby or reading comics or reading stories graphically, right? We always ask like what they're into. So what are your favorite TV shows? Are you a science fiction fan? Are you, is there a particular genre that you like? And we kind of try to steer the recommendations based on like other things that they're digging, So if somebody likes Game of Thrones or Westworld, we can really kind of, give them a little more of a curated recommendation, based on what they're already digging, not in a comic book. So some of my recent favorites are a book called Decorum, which is about the universe's most polite assassin. And it's just this really big, epic science fiction thing with obviously some killing. There's an assassin involved. I also like Saga is the book. I usually point to somebody who's never read a comic book before. If they like genre fiction, if they like, if they can handle that, Saga is a guaranteed hit. I've never had anybody not come back for volume 2 on Saga, which is... been going for a long time. There's 54 issues. There's 8 trade paperbacks for it, which are like the collected volumes, and that's a can't miss. If you like, genre fiction, obviously some folks, want a Western, or they want war stuff, or they want maybe autobiographical. So the cool thing about comics is all of those things are available. Like every genre you can think of, every style you can think of that's available in books or film is also available in the graphic format. I mean, you name it, food stuff. The list is endless.
Something for everyone. I'm hearing the big buzz right now is about Batman 100. Do you think this could be the return of Robin to the Batman series?
Yeah,
Obviously, that question was fed to me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, spoiler alert, I've already read the issue. DC sent out a PDF for that one, so my lips are sealed, but it's a great issue. So my personal favorite superhero is Batman, so yeah, I have been reading it for many, many decades, and I'm very excited for folks to read issue 100 and see what is going on in there. But yeah, it's a good issue. Rush out to your local comic shop or call them up and have them send you one. It's going to be a great book.
A little teaser there for us. And you mentioned DC. So obviously some of the big names are behind. You have DC, you have Marvel. They're behind so many of these comic books and these characters. But I wonder, what about independent comics? What is going to be the future of them? Are they surviving? Or is this kind of the time for them to thrive during this chaos?
So everything that we're seeing, so probably our biggest seller besides Marvel and DC is a company called Image Comics, which is all creator owned, and they're doing extremely well. But one thing we've noticed over the last 3 months, 4 months is collectors are really scooping up independent books in a way that they haven't in a while. Print runs are lower, so they're a little more collectible. Creatively, they can be a little more wild because there's a little less kind of corporate editorial stuff going on. So, yeah, I think the state of independence, strangely enough, in 2020, in the middle of COVID, is as good as it's been in my memory. So I'm very excited about that, and hopefully that carries forward.
Curtis Sullivan with us. He's the owner and operator of Vault of Midnight Comic Shop with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And while we're on the topic of the large operators and the independent operators, DC Comics announced DC Universe Infinite, an online service giving people access to thousands of books and putting those books on service for about 6 months. How do you believe that could impact comic shops like yours? Do you think it's going to have a big impact on your sales and your ability to be competitive, or is that something that you embrace in the industry?
So I'm all for it. I folks in my business, I get into this a lot with other comic shop owners I know, and I think digital is great. I think more retailers selling comics is fantastic. Comics are pretty small. And we just need to grow the thing. We need to grow the amount of people reading comics by a 1,000,000%. It's so tiny. I mean, a really, really big selling comic book on its best day is maybe 500,000 copies. And that's decent. But I mean, we want tens of millions of people reading comic books. So all avenues, everybody. Last year it was announced that Walmart would start selling comic books. Bring it on. That puts more comics in front of more people. And for us, for our position, we think we're really, really good at selling comics. So once somebody finds out what comic books are, they want to go. A big box store I don't think is ever going to be able to accommodate their growing fandom the way a dedicated comic book store can. So once folks find out about books, whether it's digitally or somewhere else, hopefully they come to a specialty shop like ours, and then they can really expand their journey, if you will, into the world of comic books. So yeah, I think it just helps us. More eyes on comic books I'm into that.
It'd be great if they put them in the aisles of the supermarkets, so when parents are standing there with their kids. It's a great introduction. We're talking with Curtis Sullivan. He is the owner and operator of Vault of Midnight. You have locations in Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, and downtown Detroit as well. I think a lot of people don't kind of understand if they're just a general person. You hear comic books, you kind of think of your kid, when you were a kid, you maybe saw them, read Archie, something of that nature. There is a big side business to this with collections and so much dedication to the collection of comics and comic book art and some of the figurines that you see behind you. I'm wondering if during the pandemic and COVID-19, when people lost their jobs, was there an increase of items that were put up for sale because maybe some individuals needed to make some quick cash? Is it a good time to try to buy some of these more collectible comics and figurines that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, so for us, we've noticed we're buying a lot more collections of comic books. That's what we do. We don't do, we sell collectible stuff, but we sell it new. We only deal with vintage comic books. But we have seen a big uptick in people selling collections, which is awesome for us. We're always looking to buy vintage comic books. So that's been great. But we've noticed a lot of strength with people selling stuff too. Like I said, the pandemic has really brought out the collectors. And I think buying is out, overall is outstripping selling. So, it's definitely a buyer's, well, I don't want to say it's a buyer's market, but it's a seller's market is what I'm trying to say. So, collectibles are going good. People aren't liquidating their collections in a way that you might think.
Curtis,
we have seen an uptick in comic collections, though, so that's pretty cool. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Sir, Curtis, just another couple of minutes with you before we let you go today. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss or any other information about your shop, about comic books and the industry that would be interesting or important for our audience to know today?
Yeah, I mean, I just would encourage people to check out comic books. They're so much more than superheroes, and that's no knock on superheroes. I love them so much. I've been reading comics since I was 6 or 7 years old, and they really got my imagination going, and I just fully recommend comics. And I think if you're watching shows on Netflix, pick a show, there's a comic book for you. I think don't cheat yourself. It's a really huge world. It's so expansive. Somebody mentioned Archie. They'll still come out every single week. There's new Archie comics still every week. So folks who remember these things from when they were a kid and want to show their kids this stuff, it's still around and still going strong. So, yeah, I mean, I love comics so much. I'm going on 50, and I love comics as much as I did when I was a tiny little kid. So having this be my job has only kind of grown my excitement for it. And the collecting aspect too. I buy comics and I read them, but I also am a big fan of collecting them. I have them organized in my boxes, and it's a really cool way for me to get nostalgic. When I flip through my collection, I remember, going to a comic convention and buying certain books with friends. So they really bring back a lot of memories. It's not just the book itself in the collection. It's just all the stuff that goes with it. So I recommend the hobby to anyone. First, come into a comic store, check out some comics, see if you like it, then set up a subscription at your local comic shop and make some new friends and start a new hobby. It's a cool thing.
I love that you're still so passionate about it, because you think sometimes when you go into a business that you're passionate about, that maybe it would take away from the excitement of the collection. Real quickly before we let you go, do you think all the new movies that we are seeing, not just the huge blockbusters like Wonder Woman and the superhero ones, but also some of the streaming shows, is that raising the bar and the popularity of some of the old school comic books?
Definitely. Yeah. So, for example, when Netflix puts on a new show or movie based on a comic, we immediately see an uptick in sales. Like, folks then immediately come in and want to grab the source material or want to see if there's something beyond what they saw on the screen. So, like Umbrella Academy recently is based on a comic book. I mean, our sales went through the roof. Avatar, the cartoon, which is 10 years old at least, re-hit on Netflix, and our sales went through the roof. A whole new audience saw that cartoon. And so there's tons of comic books based on Avatar that add to the story that don't exist in the show, right? It's more stuff, original content. So, yeah, I think it's, more eyes on this stuff. People love a good story. They love genre fiction. Genre fiction is just here to stay in a way that it never has been. And, every time, one of these big movies gets made, it's really cool that it does send people through the door,
Chris, one last question for you. The Price Guide 50th anniversary of the publication, is it still relevant in this age of digital?
Yeah, heck yeah. That's the Overstreet's price guide. I love it so much. This 50th issue has a cover by an artist named Todd McFarlane, who is one of my favorites from the 90s. He's still around. He's still doing comics. And he did a Spider-Man Spawn cover. So it's the first one I've bought. I only buy one every 5 years or so. But yeah, I got my copy. It's awesome. I love it. It's very nostalgic for me. You can find prices online, but the Overstreet's this really trusted old school guide where it's like recorded sales, and it kind of gives you a longer view. So stuff on the internet, if you're looking up prices, these are like flash prices, right? Is that a long-term price, or is that a price driven by some market movement in the moment, right? A movie release or an announcement about a movie or something that's kind of spiked the price. So Overstreet's gives you like a nice kind of long view, if you will. So yes is the answer.
Well, thank you so much. We obviously, that was another question that was fed to me. So we have appreciated your time, and we love this conversation. Chris Sullivan, he's the owner and operator of Vault of Midnight. They have locations Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, and Detroit. Support our small businesses. Explore the comic book world. It's not only exciting, but it's also educational in a different way. So if you have a kid, this might be a way to reach them educational. Chris, I want to let you know my husband's birthday is coming up in November. He's a Flash fanatic. So I'm going to be connecting with you. If you have anything cool Flash, put it aside for me.
Right on. Yeah, we sure do. T-shirts, statues, comics, all kinds of goodies. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. And when we come back, we're going to be shifting gears quite a bit and going into the world of politics as well as voting time. Absentee ballot voting is already underway here in the state of Michigan. We'll be speaking with the League of Women Voters on the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Thank you for tuning in to the Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dull alongside the one, the only, Tyler Keefe, here in the Civic Center TV studios in the greater West Bloomfield area. Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, we work to bring you interviews with newsmakers and interesting people here throughout the Oakland County area. You can catch us on civiccentertv.com, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. Also catch us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 FM The Biff. And today we are happy to say that the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office is our Facebook partner of the day, and they are streaming the Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast on their Facebook page, and we want to say thank you to them because, you know, the election is near. Tyler, just 36 days until Election Day. Let's bring in Geri Rinschler. Did I get your name right?
Perfect, Ronnie. Yeah, just call me Geri.
Geri, she is the VP of the Community Engagement and Marketing for the League of Women Voters and a board member of the Women Officials Network Foundation. You focus on the Oakland County area. We are so pleased to have you again on the Oakland County Megacast because so much to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Well, let me give you a little update. So I'll start with the League of Women Voters because this is really a pretty crunch time for us. So we start looking at events and timelines in August. And I'm going to guess most of your listeners and viewers have seen a printed voter guide. It's printed twice a year. Oakland County's always done our own. The League of Women Voters Michigan does a version also. So they pretty much will give you information about the national election. Ours is basically Oakland County except for Troy. Troy has a league, but we always, our information is all together. So we've been working on that, and let me tell you a little bit about that, because I know our supporters far and wide are always asking right around Election Day, where can I find one of these? It's so much more helpful to look at it in a newspaper style. So because of a little deadline glitches in a couple different areas, and we had to wait for the county to make sure we had the accurate information before we could go to press. So they have been printed. They're going to be distributed. We're really excited. And they will be pretty much found in clerks' offices. I believe most of them are now open, and libraries. And I know every library has a different way of access to the public. So you might want to check that out. But maybe the easiest way for those folks who are on the internet is to go to the website vote411.org. And it's quite user-friendly. So you'll go to that website, you'll get a prompt to put in your address. When you put in your address, you can access a line item for everyone you will be voting for. And what we have done for our league for more than 50 years is sending out questions to each candidate and asking those to be returned to us by a certain date. So they're asked by a different committee for different offices. They work together to come up with appropriate questions, certainly non-partisan questions. For whatever reason, some candidates choose not to respond or just pass the deadline. And so we get questions, well, what happened to, candidate number 3 for a school board and why are they not included? It's 99.9% of the time because they didn't respond in a timely fashion. So there's also information in there as well. I'm going to jump to another fun topic that we've been working on. Our League of Women Voters Oakland area now has our own website, YouTube channel, And what we started doing about 2 months ago is doing recordings of pertinent information of how to vote for the primary, how to vote for the absentee. And most recently, one of our members' husbands has done those for us in Spanish. So they're available in English and Spanish both. So that's been kind of fun. As you know, with COVID, everything is on Zoom or board meetings. We haven't met in person since maybe February, but it seems to be working. So part 3 are those live candidate interviews. And in the past, I'm sure, Ronnie, you've probably attended some where our league members will preside over a panel and invite all candidates running for a particular office. And the attendees will send questions to the front to be asked. So doing it on Zoom's been a little more complicated because we've had some candidates who choose not to participate for whatever reason. And in many cases where we've had a long list of candidates, it became a little problematic. So for some races, when you click on those, and that you can access them through vote41.org, you'll notice that it's a little different format. It's more of a interview process with some questions. And so we've got a number of folks. We have an entire committee that work on Deb Horner, Jerry Burden, Judy Bateman, work simultaneously with Sue Liebertrue, and I could go on and on. It really takes a village to get this done, and we are a volunteer organization and a nonprofit. So that's pretty much where we've been. Today we're going to have another meeting because our community engagement wants to try and do one more informational piece on YouTube to help those voters, especially first-time voters, doing absentee. So did I give you enough information, Ronnie? Oh, I can't hear.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Couldn't hear you for a second.
Sorry about that.
No. So that's what's been keeping us busy. We're always trying to make sure our voters get this all in a timely fashion. So we had a little heartburn for a while trying to get everything to the printer. So we're just excited that it's occurring, and they will, I don't know if I gave you the date, but they're to be delivered on October 5th or 6th. So somewhere in that window. But if anyone is planning to vote now, as I understand ballots are being mailed out to those who applied to get an absentee ballot, you can always go to that vote411.org and get everything you need to know.
Geri Rinschler with us. She is the Vice President of Community Engagement and Marketing for the League of Women Voters Oakland area, also a board member of the Women Officials Network Foundation, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast as we talk about elections, a primary function of the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office, our Facebook partner on today's edition of the program. And Geri, one of the great benefits of the information, the nonpartisan information that is provided to the voting public by the League of Women Voters are their candidate forums, which there's already been several of them done for the general election in November. Actually, we just started airing the Sylvan Lake City Council candidate forum last week and over the weekend. It's on it's posted on our website on civiccentertv.com for those in the prettiest little city in Michigan who are wondering about their candidates for office. Many more are planned. They're scheduled, and that's all on your website, lwvoa.org. But there's still a lot of other open positions that are contested that have not yet been scheduled or marked scheduled for candidate forums. As we are approaching the November election, we're a couple of months out at this point, a month out or so at this point. Are there any plans for further candidate forums?
Yes, and those are on our website. The difficulty with having 63 municipalities in our county, we don't have enough people to go out who are experienced enough and knowledgeable in, or a member of the League of Women Voters to conduct those interviews. So one of the things we've talked about in some races, if you go back to the primary, we're leaving some of those interviews up in a couple, and I can't tell you which communities. And one of them may be the county executive forum, the Zoom forum. So we can't get everywhere, sorry to say. We would like to, but we certainly do have printed information, I'll call it printed, in our voter guides. And we do send a questionnaire via US mail as well as email. And if we don't get a response from a candidate about participating and we have a phone call, we will even call them up and say, we're so hoping you will participate. In some situations, we have found it's not widespread, but we've had occasions where none of the candidates wanted to participate. And you might see some statements from one candidate. So if one candidate from Party A decides they do not want to participate, we now will allow the candidate from Party B or C to make a statement, and we record those. So we're trying. Our membership is increasing, and we're really excited. And we're getting many more folks engaged and wanting to help. So we'll see in 2 years from now, maybe we will be able to get everywhere, but it's kind of multi-layered, which determines how these come to be. So keep an eye. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm not sure if anyone's confused, but about 2 weeks ago, we put up a new website. It's much more informative. And so what we've been telling members and trying to spread to the public is if you go to leagueofwomenvoters.org/Michigan/Oakland area, it will come up. And you can also access it through the League of Women Voters Michigan website. So those are connected. But as far as this election, 411.org is so simple, and there's everything you need to know. If you don't mind, I'd like to thank all the clerks. I don't think the public realizes how difficult this is with COVID, first of all. I think we're really lucky in Michigan that we had a primary when we did, so it was kind of like a practice to go out and see how things are working. It is just, I know they're working overtime, but I think having that primaries really helped us, so it'll be a lot more efficient. But we did hear very positive things. A number of our board members do go volunteer in communities outside of their own, and the feedback from them was everything went really well during the primary. So and counting in Oakland County was completed on the absentee voter list by 7 o'clock. So that's pretty impressive too.
Yeah, they really are working around the clock, trying to make sure that everyone has the information that they need to be able to vote and make sure that they vote correctly, because in this last primary, there were more than 10,000 votes that, for whatever reason, many people just don't fill out the form correctly, or this, that, and the other. They are our area clerks working around the clock to try to make sure that everyone is informed on how to vote and do that properly. Geri, you've been doing this for quite some time. You're passionate about voting, and what I love about your organization, the League of Women Voters, you are nonpartisan. This is going to be a crazy election. What is your thought? I know that in Lansing, they are trying to get some movement on changing some of the rules and regulations around absentee ballot voting, because we can't have some of these people sequestered for up to a week while they're trying to count some of these mail-in ballots and other things of that nature. What's your thought on that? And are you encouraged about some of the bipartisan work that's being done in Lansing to get some changes done in this area?
Yeah, I certainly am. And I'll just slip in, as a former school board trustee in Birmingham, I was really pleased, more than pleased, to see the bipartisan cooperation on the budget. And, by law, I'm changing subjects on you, but
that's okay.
I'm very passionate about public education. So by law, school boards have to have an approved budget voted on before by July 1. And to be, especially with COVID, to be left in limbo all these months has been so difficult for school board trustees. My heart goes out to all of them and the superintendents. I know with COVID, this is not anything they thought about none of us ever dreamed would happen. So I am very grateful to all of those elected officials. But yes, we also have an advocacy committee that was formed in January for the League of Women Voters. So they've been giving us information about some of the bills we have been very supportive of, and trying to support the clerks as well. And that one which was just, I believe it's been approved, so that the clerks can at least remove that outer envelope 10 hours before, so that they can start counting absentee ballots in a more efficient way. So I am encouraged. I early in the summer, when I heard all sorts of criticism about absentee voting, I thought that was very confusing to the average voter, and even more confusing to the person who's never voted before and never voted in an absentee election, by ballot before. And which is why we started our YouTube channel and putting information there, because I think if you were to ask my entire League of Women Voters board, we feel very confident that this is a secure election. I'm sure if you asked any clerk in Oakland County, they would tell you that. So I've been reassuring folks, because I get questions all the time saying, well, I'm not so sure that this is, my ballot's really going to get counted. And I've noticed lately the clerks are all putting on their websites, and if you subscribe to your local municipality, they have been sending out details about the process, how, with the deadlines. The Secretary of State has put together a very detailed, informative website. And that's another place to go to get more information. I will go back to talking about the primary a little, because we were at first under the impression that all the municipalities were going to receive additional ballot boxes that would be installed in front of their municipal building. And as we got close to the primary, we realized there were some municipalities who never received them. And I know Ferndale and maybe one other were doing drive-through weekends where the clerk and their deputized assistants were in front of the municipality and collecting in person those either applications for registration or if they were dropping off a ballot. So these boxes are very secure. They're cemented down. I mean, it's not something someone's going to take and abscond with. In Birmingham, ours happens to be right near the entrance to the police department. So we've got policemen coming and going, 24/7. But so hopefully folks won't worry so much about that. And if you've interviewed a clerk lately, they can explain to you how the absentee ballots are, barcoded and checked and double checked. But Ronnie, I'm going to just go back for a minute to a comment you made.
Geri, we only have just another minute or two with you. So can you give us your finishing thought there?
Yeah, I'll leave you with the message to just ask everyone listening to be careful, really take your time if you're voting absentee, and make sure you have checked the appropriate boxes and you did sign the envelope. Because I know in Bloomfield Township, Clerk Jan Roncelli said they had to call 400 of their voters and ask, did you want a primary election ballot or, in November, or do you want both? So I've taken up a whole bunch of your time talking about the league, and I didn't get to talk to you about the Women Officials Network Foundation.
We'll have you on again pretty soon. That's the great thing about the Oakland County Megacast. We're always looking for exciting guests to share a lot of information. And so as we get closer to the election, we'll be sure to have you on again, Geri. Thank you so much for your time. Geri with the League of Women Voters, a great nonprofit organization and nonpartisan organization working to give us information to make sure that we all get out and have our voices heard this upcoming election. This is 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. And when we come back, we'll stay in the arena of politics, going out to David Dulio. He's a professor of political science. We have a lot to talk about with him, especially about the upcoming debate. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Thank Thank you for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe here in our studios at Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM in the greater West Bloomfield area. We appreciate everyone tuning in with us here on the Oakland County Megacast, and we always appreciate the time and the insight of our next guest, David Dulio, professor of political science and director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University. Thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast. You want to start with the debates tomorrow?
Ronnie, we'll start wherever you like.
I really am interested. I think this is going to be an important debate for the two presidential candidates. What should we be looking for going into the debates?
Well, I think you're right. I think this has the chance to be maybe the most consequential presidential debate that we've seen, arguably since 1960 in the famous Nixon-Kennedy debates. And I would say that because of, and it ties into the what folks ought to look out for, what I think I'm looking for tomorrow. And it's really about expectations. And, we've seen over almost the course of the entire process thus far, President Trump go after former Vice President Biden about his mental faculties, you might say. And it's really, he's pointing at Joe Biden's, he's for years, he's made gaffes, right? And that's really what President Trump has been pointing at as a possible downfall for the former vice president in a debate. It's interesting, though, that because he's gone that route for so long and so often, he may have actually served the former vice president pretty well in lowering expectations to the point where if Joe Biden doesn't mess up tomorrow, it's probably a win for him.
Wow, that's an interesting aspect that I hadn't thought about, because I think that's one thing people are saying is that COVID-19 and the lack of the harsh realities of the campaign trail and the longevity of the campaign trail has probably served Biden well going into this presidential election. But now today we had the big story coming out on the New York Times about Trump and his taxes. While it's been this is not a new issue. This goes back years about him not releasing his taxes, but now them coming out saying he isn't paying taxes, and now he has personal debt that is going to be owed, and if he's reelected, that bill could come due. So how do you think that's going to play into the debate tomorrow night?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because we heard last week about half a dozen or so areas that the moderator for tomorrow, Chris Wallace from Fox News, had identified as those that he would cover. And this may change those priorities for him. We'll see how much attention is paid to this new report, which, as you note correctly, is really not a new report. It's an issue that's popped up again and again for Donald Trump. And even if we then merge into questions about Joe Biden's son Hunter and a Senate report that came out about his dealings in Ukraine while Biden was vice president. We'll see if we get into any of that tomorrow with the moderator. I would have to imagine he's going to bring up the story about the taxes, and Trump is likely to go back to his tried and true lines about it, which have worked enough for him in the past, talking about, he's smart that he takes every deduction that he's got coming. But how much of that is willing, how much the public is willing to accept of that this close to an election, I think is a good question.
David Dulio with us. He's the director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University, also a professor of political science at Oakland University as well. On top of the election, another pervasive issue right now related to the presidency is, of course, the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and determining her successor on the U.S. Supreme Court. President Trump over the weekend nominating Amy Coney Barrett for that position, controversially, as before the previous election cycle, Barack Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland was all but blocked by Republicans in the Senate from going through that process. And this time around, the Republican Party hoping to fast track Barrett's appointment to the Supreme Court, while the Democratic Party is arguing what was argued against them 4 years ago, that this should wait for the next president to be elected. Neither side really taking the high road, saying where the Republicans could say, well, we didn't let this happen in 2016. We're going to let the election decide it in 2020. And the Democrats not going with what they said 4 years ago, where you're the president, you should be able to make this nomination. Where do you see this going? Is this nomination going to come to fruition because, of course, of the majority of the Republicans in the Senate and the critical nature of this position for their party? Or are we going to see this push on to the point where the clock expires and it is going to be determined by the next president, should it be Trump or Biden?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I would just shorten that to say hypocrisy abounds on Capitol Hill right now.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody has switched sides. The folks that were arguing for a confirmation in 2016 are now arguing against it, and those that were against it are now for it, right? So it's darn near everybody has flip-flopped, save a few senators.
Yeah, no surprise there, right?
No, really. I mean, let's, you like to think there's consistency with our elected officials, and this is an instance when we're not getting any from just about anybody, and I think that's disappointing. But to answer your question, it's going to get through. If the Republicans who have said that they are for the confirmation and are supporting the process, if they stick to that, the Democrats can't stop it. They will. It'll get through committee mid to late October, and then it'll be on the Senate floor, where these days a Supreme Court nominee only needs 51 votes to be confirmed. That'll happen, looks like, before Election Day.
David Dulio with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is a professor of political science and the director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University. 36 days until Election days. The campaign ads are hitting the airwaves. A lot of people do believe the road to the White House runs straight through Michigan. What can Michiganders expect to see in the last 36 days?
Ads, and more ads. It's going to be more of the same. I think you'll see the alleged I use air quotes around negativity, which is a whole nother conversation we could have. But I think you'll see the negative ads continue. I think we'll see the candidates and their surrogates here several more times in the next month or so, and it very well could run right through Michigan.
Let's talk about the negativity, David Dulio, because it seems like in this election cycle particularly, we are seeing those ads that we are seeing nonstop, TV, radio, print, web, wherever it is, it could be at any given time. We're seeing that the vast majority of them seem to be attacking the opposing candidate, whether it be the Michigan senator, U.S. senator position between John James and the incumbent Geri Peters, whether it be the presidential elections, certainly, and even House of Representatives elections as well, and those in local elections also. Why do you believe we're seeing so much more negativity, more attacks than we are, this is my position, this is what makes me qualified, this is what I plan to do in this particular election cycle?
It's real simple, because it works. Candidates and their campaigns, political parties, outside interest groups, they wouldn't do these if they didn't think that they had a big impact, and they do. The research demonstrates it. It is a proven, effective method of getting more votes than some other method. And I'd also say too, and I'm glad you brought up the topic, because I think we hear oftentimes that there's a common refrain every 2 years, 4 years, that this is the most negative campaign we've ever had. Oh my goodness, it's so terrible. Oh, democracy is crumbling. And I don't think that's the case. And history proves that. If we go back to the 1860s, if we looked at some of the things that were said about Abraham Lincoln or were said about candidates at that time period, it pales in comparison to many of the things that are mentioned today. And I think your listeners and viewers should think about what information is being conveyed in these ads. And is it information that is useful to them as a voter in making their decision? And the research that's been done on this demonstrates that there's more information about policies, more information about candidates' plans for what they would like to see happen in so-called negative ads and certainly contrast ads compared to those that we might term positive, which are usually just fluff ads telling us about how great a family the candidate has and where they grew up. So the research suggests that the things that we consider negative are actually more informative for voters.
Do you think it's going to be harder for so many of the candidates this year because they've been unable to go out to big public events and door-to-door knocking and things of that nature? So maybe people are only seeing these attack ads, and that's what they're going to base their vote off of.
Well, I think that most of the time that's what the vast majority of potential voters see, because it's the easiest way to get to the most people. But I think you make a really good point about non-conventional or being conventional campaign processes or tactics taken away from candidates this time, where rallies are a no-go. Of course, the president has what he would consider small rallies these days, but candidates, I think it's a tough call for them if they're going to go door to door during COVID-19. You never know how the person on the other side of the door is going to react to somebody coming up to their doorstep to talk about a candidacy. I think it's tougher to raise money for some candidates this time because they can't do it in ways that they would have normally done so with events and parties and those sorts of things. So at the end of the day, I think it helps incumbents in especially in races down the ballot. I don't think it matters too much at the presidential or U.S. Senate level, maybe even congressional level, but certainly further down the ballot, that's a real impact.
David Dulio with us, professor of political science, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. A lot of recent controversy coming up pointed at the White House. Of course, Donald Trump fielded questions recently about should he lose the election, would he commit to a peaceful transition of power from his administration to a presumptive Joseph Biden administration, and was not exactly committal one way or another on that. His comments getting a lot of reaction, of course, because they're highly reactionary comments. Was this political theater from Trump, or do you believe that he is truly considering whether or not he would make a peaceful transition?
I think it was really a clumsy answer. He was asked about a peaceful transition of power, and he really went into a different topic. He went into the question of ballots and voting by mail, and I think that he maybe tried to redirect it to a topic that he wanted to talk about, and I think it resulted in, frankly, a worse story for him than if he would have just answered what he was asked.
Trump does that so often, though, doesn't he? I'm hoping that obviously they anticipate that this is going to be a larger, election. And normally more people do come out to vote during a presidential election than the primary. We're expecting that voter turnout is going to be much larger. I would hope that COVID-19 is at least try to emphasize how important our local and state elections are, because one thing we've seen throughout this crisis, they are really the ones making the day-to-day decisions for all of us. So do you think that is going to help or hurt some of these candidates?
Well, you're exactly right that we see a surge in turnout in presidential years, certainly compared to primary elections, and even in contrast to midterm elections like we just had in 2018. You know, our turnout in 2016 was, here in Michigan, was 63% or so, which is pretty high. But let's flip that around and say that it still means, you know, more than 35% of the public said, to heck with it. I'm not going to participate. And I think when you even add to that, you asked about those races down the ballot. I think there's a case to be made that those are actually more important elections than those at the top of the ticket, because you say they are the ones that are affecting citizens' daily lives in a very immediate and personal way. You know, the who's on your city council, think about school board this time around, right? In the era of COVID-19, school boards have been making incredibly important decisions, and those are the ones that, as we said, come down the ballot. And there's always fall off from the top of the ticket to the last race on the back of your ballot, right? And I think, unfortunately, maybe folks don't think they have enough information about city council, township supervisor, what have you, to make those decisions, in part because there's so much information coming at folks in elections like this one, when we've got a presidential race, we've got a competitive U.S. Senate race, and those really do sort of suck up the oxygen and make it difficult for candidates down the ballot to get their message out.
Yeah. I think if anything, this election is going to teach so much of us. Do your research, do your homework, print out that sample ballot before you actually, check that box, do a little bit of homework. We have to pretty much wrap it up here with you, but we could talk to you all day long. But before we go, I love what you guys are doing over at the Center for Civic Engagement. I know we've talked about it in the past. Quickly give us an update on the upcoming talks and how people can log in to participate and at least see what you guys are doing over there.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. We've got two big things coming up in October. One about civility in politics, featuring Nolan Finley from the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson from Detroit Public TV and radio. They're going to talk about their relationship, even though that they disagree politically on just about everything. But they maintain this wonderful friendship. And I think that they do a really nice job of modeling the behavior that I think we want to see more from people who disagree. I'd also note that we've got something on October 12th. The thing on civility with Nolan and Stephen is October 6th. On October 12th, we're going to have a virtual talk from a guy named Stan Greenberg. And he is incredibly important in American politics. He was the pollster for Bill Clinton in the 90s, but more for us here in Michigan. He coined the term that's a term that some of your listeners and viewers might remember: Reagan Democrats. And he coined that term after doing great research in Macomb County with Democrats who voted for Ronald Reagan, independents who voted for Ronald Reagan. He's going to do this talk for us on the politics of Macomb County. It's going to be fascinating. Viewers and listeners can find all of our stuff on Facebook. We are at OUCCE. If they look that up, they'll find all our stuff, and we'd love to have them participate.
Thank you so much, as always, for being with us. David Dulio, Professor of Political Science and Director of the Center for Civic Engagement, Oakland University. I am definitely going to be logging on to those talks as well. Always great having you. We appreciate your time. We need to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about travel in the state of Michigan. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
We don't always see eye to eye.
Thanks, David. Great job.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's going to be who?
And whether we wear green or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19: wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards. Back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Thank you for tuning into the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith here in the Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM studio. So I will tell you, I'm so excited for this next interview because the travel industry here in the state of Michigan is so important. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we've taken a little bit of a hit, but in some areas, things look better than others. Obviously, up north, beautiful. I was up in Traverse City last week. David Lorenz, he's the Vice President, Travel Michigan Economic Development Corporation. David, the last time we had you on, you were outside. You're inside today, but I have to say, I thought you'd be with a bear. Like,
indoor bears.
Hanging out with the wild.
Right. Well, I think last time we had talked about Oswald's Bear Ranch, right?
Yes, I haven't made it. It's so on my bucket list now.
And was I on vacation? I think I was.
Yes.
It was good. So it's funny, you were just talking about Traverse City. I'm actually at the office for Traverse City Tourism, and they've set me up in my own little office so I can take off my mask and not feel bad. And it's a little bit of rain here today. But any day up north is a beautiful day in beautiful, pure Michigan. And they have done well up here. This has been a great summer. But here we are. Much of the state still is not completely open. And that's, causing a lot of problems for our businesses. And I'm really concerned about that. But this is also, the time of the year that things start to slow down for everybody. So after a very good summer, mostly supported by in-state residents and a lot of those folks that were impacted by the Pure Michigan messaging over the years coming into the state, I am concerned as we go into this slower season. I'm really concerned about restaurants and some of especially the smaller hotels around the state, retail, and live performance venues, performers. We have a long way to go. But, if we hang tight and support our businesses, we'll help them make it through.
Yeah. And up north, because when we were up in Traverse City, we did have the opportunity to speak with some of the retail owners and the employees at the wineries. They are doing pretty well compared to the rest of the state. A little rough in the beginning. They're doing pretty well. However, finding employees right now seems to be a little bit harder for them, and across the state, so many businesses are experiencing that as well. But when we're talking about some of the music venues, even though the governor released some of the restrictions allowing for them to reopen, when you're talking about 20%, that's not even going to be enough for them to open their doors. One industry expert said we could see about 90% of those businesses shutting down. What would that do to our overall economy?
Well, of course, it would hurt the entire state's economy, and I think that that's probably it's not necessarily a pessimistic outlook either. I think that's pretty realistic. It would hurt the economy in many ways, but just as important to the economy is the atmosphere, who we are as a community. And without those live performance venues being active and thriving, it really harms who we are as a community. And I think of those long-term effects, because people like me and my age, I've seen a lot of great performances, and I know I'll eventually be able to see them in the future. But I think young people who might they might be just starting to develop their interest in the arts and in performance and such, and the fact that they're not going to be able to go to these venues, that's really disturbing to me, because especially you think about that 12-year-old, right around that age and a little bit older, that's when people are really starting to figure out who they are. And the arts plays a huge role on who we will be in the future. So if we don't have those, local venues, it's going to be bad. I talked to I talked to an owner from a venue by the name of 7 Steps Up on Friday. It's in Spring Lake. I live in the area. I've gone there and I've attended their performances before. It's a small little venue, and it's acoustically beautiful, really wonderful. And they bring in pretty big names for such a small venue, which means they need to charge quite a bit per ticket. But it's a really intimate place, a really special place. Well, I can tell you that the owner, understandably, was emotional, distraught, really, not knowing what to do. They put everything into this, going pretty well, and then this thing hit. So I'm hoping, even though, let's be very clear, I can't advocate for policy, I really am hoping that at some level, local, state, federal, or whatever, there's some type of a loan relief package that is developed to help these types of small business owners. There's no guarantee in business, of course, ever. But man, I just feel for them. And I'm just hoping we can come up with a way to help. So what I'm trying to do with Pure Michigan is I'm trying to encourage people, your listeners right now, to support those venues when they do start to open up at limited capacities. Just as I'm trying to encourage your listeners and your viewers to go to local restaurants and, being a tourist in your own town. You don't have to go very far. Just have spend a few days in your own town and spend some money, help those businesses survive. Those businesses are part of our culture, but they also provide a lot of jobs for us as well.
They definitely do that. And we have so many great places to visit in our own areas, even more so now going into the fall months. Felt like summer last week, but beginning this week, the cold front's coming down. We are going to be in the midst of the fall weather this week. What are some cool travel spots for families, fall related?
Of course, a lot of people are going to be looking for fall color. And I can tell you, I was on the phone with the folks in the Keweenaw Peninsula on Friday as well. And they were telling me that entire Keweenaw Peninsula is just ablaze in color right now. Not a surprise. This is about the time. They're actually about on schedule. I thought it would be kind of an advanced schedule this year because of the stress on the trees with limited rain throughout the summer season. But so that western UP right now is at peak, starting to come kind of the central and eastern part of the UP this week and this coming week. And then you're going to see the central part of the lower peninsula and then the shorelines eventually really color in the next 3 weeks as well. I can tell you that on the west side of the state, my drive up the coast this morning was beautiful. Even though it was dark for most of it, I could still see a lot of the color in the trees, and it was just awesome. Now, one of the unique things that we can do this fall with the family is travel, because a lot of those kids are doing virtual classroom experiences. So you can actually do something really unique, and let's hope this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience and opportunity. You can travel. A lot of the parents can work virtually wherever they are. Kids take virtual classes wherever they are. And then use that travel experience as an educational opportunity as well. So we've been providing people with a bunch of ideas on educational travel. You can go to michigan.org and learn more. Or you just, the website is michigan.org/educational travel, and you can find out more. Unique places to a lot of people for learning, kind of like field trips, might include the Henry Ford, Greenfield Village. That's always educational and fun. But there are a lot of other things like that, indoors and out, that people should look for. And I think this is one of those things that now that it's kind of top of mind, that will move us forward, in the future as well, to think about travel in a new way, not just as a leisure opportunity, but as an opportunity constantly to teach our kids things that maybe we didn't really intentionally do that in the past. I have the advantage of being married to a now retired teacher. So when my son was young, we traveled around, and every opportunity was an educational opportunity for my wife. And my son now is really engaging and interesting and really, I think, well-rounded. And a lot of that has to do with our travel and the things he learned along the way. So I encourage people to think that as they travel Michigan this fall.
David Lorenz with us. He's the Vice President of Travel Michigan for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. So, David, you mentioned some of the places that are already seeing the colors change and are looking beautiful already as we are now into the fall season. For those that are planning their travel in the next few weeks and want to see the foliage, what are some places throughout the state of Michigan, Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, East, West, North, and South, that you suggest people go that maybe they haven't thought about before?
Yeah, well, of course, my mind always goes first to the Upper Peninsula because it's just so beautiful. And the variety of trees up there is quite stunning. I think a lot of people think of the Upper Peninsula mostly for evergreens. There are a lot of green trees around there. But you also find, more than 100 varieties of deciduous trees in the Upper Peninsula. And one of the most beautiful places that's easy to get to, relatively speaking, is Tequamanon Falls State Park. Just about an hour and 30 minutes north of the Mackinac Bridge, north and just slightly west, right up there on the Lake Superior shoreline, basically. It's just awesome, beautiful. I was there on my vacation in August, and I've never seen so many people there. So this time of the year, it'll be quite a bit quieter. So I recommend you consider that. And then you might want to go to places that you've really never thought of before, like little towns on the interior of the state. Most people think about the big lake shorelines, and it certainly is beautiful. And we'll mention one of those in just a minute, but I'd suggest going to small places. So, because you can naturally distance, there aren't a lot of people there ever, especially at this time of the year, but you can see some really cool things. So if you took that, what I call the Sauk Trail, that 12, it was an animal trail, and then a Native American trail, then it was a wagon train trail, and now it's a route that basically goes around the 94 corridor, south of 94. And it's so cool. A lot of little towns, built in the 1800s, so a lot of those brick-covered buildings. That's a cool experience. And some of those places are just awesome. Marshall, for instance, I'm into architecture, so you see all these really unique buildings there, including an old stagecoach stop, which is pretty neat. So look for those types of things. It's just countless. Cedarville is a really cool place, another town up north. So you find these little places like that. Now, if you are looking for waterfront experiences, most of the state kind of thinks of the west coast of the Lower Peninsula, and a lot of people go there, and it's beautiful. But when's the last time you went to the East Coast, maybe to Port Huron? I was just there the other day, and was reminded about the Edison themes, because Edison spent his time there. So there's a lot of neat things to see, including all the maritime things. Took that drive up, US 23. Is it beautiful? Stunning, beautiful area. Up to like Bay City. What a neat town with lumber heritage, and that's really got a lot of things going for them right now. And then a little bit farther north up the Sunrise Coast, Oscoda. I had never stayed overnight there, and I just thought it was cool. Kind of an old-timey place with a lot of little cabins that make up resorts, and there are just dozens of them there. And you're right on Lake Huron. I mean, I stayed at a place that was like 15 feet off the water. It was awesome. And then kept on going north. The dinosaur experience there, Dinosaur Gardens, this is fun. And then I went all the way up to Alpena. And among the things that we did, we went to Rockport State Park, and we looked at fossils, took a couple fossils home. If you go to that park, one of our newest, you will see fossils. You'll step on fossils. They're all over the place. 300 acres of rocks, and you can take 25 pounds home with you. So again, education and travel, and a totally different type of state park experience than what you might be thinking of. Just a few ideas.
You are just full of so many great suggestions. Just another minute or two with you here on the Oakland County Megacast before we let you go. Let's talk about the Pure Michigan campaign. It survives another budget year. Is it enough? And has it really paid for itself by enticing so many in-state residents to get out and explore the state of Michigan?
Yeah, this year it was, I don't want to say easy, but people wanted to stay close to home. So we encouraged them to do that, as we are still encouraging them to do that today. And of course, we had no promotional funding. So we could use social media and conversations like this to encourage that. And I appreciate the time. And so that helped. Going into next year, it's going to be critically important that we're competitive, that we compete against all those other messages, all those other venues and destinations around the country and around the world. And so it looks like we're going to get $15 million. We'll know within the next couple of days. That'll help. And we'll do all we can to be as efficient as possible. It has paid off, and it will pay off. And we're going to try to get this economy back on track. We'll do our part. I promise you that.
Thank you so much for all of your hard work and trying to entice people to visit Michigan, keep our economy going. It's so important for so many industries and so many businesses. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and then we'll wrap up the show with the commissioner for Michigan's Public Service Commission. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the medical director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe. And we are here in the Civic Center TV studios, 89.3. Just a reminder, you can always catch us on the Birmingham Area Municipal Access and Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. Catch us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH in Bloomfield Hills. We are everywhere. And also we want to say thank you today to the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office for live streaming today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on their Facebook page. We say thank you to them. Just about 15 minutes left here in the show. We want to round it out with an important topic touching so many families right now. Joining us on the Megacast is Tremaine Phillips. He's the commissioner for the Michigan Public Service Commission. Commissioner, thank you for being with us. If we can just dive into what everyone is talking about and dealing with right now, broadband access. What is the state of Michigan doing to try to get access to so many families during this pandemic?
Yes, well, this is certainly an issue that was highlighted and has been a focus of the Whitmer administration and the Snyder administration before it, increasing not only the access to broadband services to Michigan residents, but also looking for opportunities to make those options more affordable to residents. But the pandemic has just helped to further highlight the need for these services, not only in terms of allowing for individuals to work remotely and to engage in economic and entrepreneurial activities from home, but now increasingly to allow for students in order to engage in work remotely and to engage in remote learning. So currently, the state of Michigan is engaging in a number of programs and grant opportunities in order to really begin to tackle this challenge. And one that the Michigan Public Service Commission is intimately involved in is that we partnered with a nonprofit called Connect Michigan and a number of other state agencies to release a broadband Wi-Fi hotspots map for residents who lack internet access at their home in order to, again, engage in remote learning or access other internet enabled services.
As a member of the Public Service Commission, how do you try to engage with private companies to address some of these areas that need service, but from a company standpoint, they're saying, well, that's not really profitable for us. How do those conversations go?
Right. Well, what has been really fortunate about this ongoing economic and public health crisis is that we've seen a lot of cooperation between the regulatory agency, the commission, state agencies and institutions, and the private sector. So really from the onset of the pandemic, we were speaking with telecoms providers across the state on a weekly basis, trying to understand what are the affordability plans and options that they have available to residents. How can we make more public Wi-Fi spots, hotspots open and free to residents to allow them to try and reduce the stress of being able to have that access at home. So those conversations have been, in the short term, very productive in trying to figure out how to increase the availability of this critical service during this time. What we really are looking towards now is how can we begin to make some of these solutions sticky? How can we have some of these solutions really help tackle that internet adoption and access challenge over the next 5, 10, and 20 years? We know that this is not just going to be a challenge here during the pandemic, but the availability of broadband and the disparities in what that availability can offer to households and to families in terms of providing them opportunities, economic opportunities, educational opportunities. Those are going to be challenges that we face here in the long term. And they're not just challenges faced by Michigan. There's challenges faced by states all across the country.
Tremaine Phillips with us. He's a commissioner with the Michigan Public Service Commission, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. So the Wi-Fi hotspot map that was released in June, this is just an interim step in the efforts that the Public Service Commission and its community partners are taking to help bridge this broadband gap. How far along in the process are we? How much closer are we to being able to provide broadband to a wider range of people that have not had access to it before and absolutely need access to it right now?
Well, that's an interesting question, and one of the challenges that we're actually trying to tackle. There's just a disparity in terms of what information the state of Michigan has and the federal government has in terms of what areas of the state are served by broadband or affordable and accessible broadband internet speeds. So, we have a couple of data points. One is from the Department of Education here in the state of Michigan. They've noted that almost 30% of their students in the education system here in the state do not have access to either broadband infrastructure or services in their community, or what services are available, they're not affordable to those residents. So that's just one metric when we're looking at, this need for distance learning and increased connectivity. We know that somewhere between 25 and 30% of students aren't being able to really engage as much as we would like them to because of this lack of access at home. So again, the hotspots map is an interim step. We have 300 locations across the state currently online, and we're increasingly trying to get private providers, libraries, schools, private businesses, and other companies and buildings to open up those Wi-Fi hotspots to allow for residents to be able to access them from parking lots, not have to risk their health and safety and exposure to COVID-19 by going inside of a business or a location, and to be able to still access whatever internet services they need through those hotspots.
One thing that's been frustrating in general for all businesses, red tape in dealing with the government. One thing during COVID-19 and the pandemic, we have seen in some industries, the healthcare industry amongst them, is that sometimes being in this crisis has allowed for these businesses to cut through some of that red tape. So as far as from the Public Service Commission standpoint, is some of that happening in Lansing so that we can get some of these desperately needed programs up and running in a more timely fashion?
What I will say is that now, to your point, I think that the crisis in a number of areas have accelerated innovations, has forced conversations that maybe we would have had within the next 5 years, but they've all happened within the last 3 to 6 months. So I do think that a lot of those challenges, a lot of those regulatory barriers are at least being identified at this time. The commission is currently working with 8 or 9 other state agencies, everyone from the Michigan Department of Transportation to the public libraries, to the Department of Ag and the Department of Human Health Services. We're all now coordinating with one another to understand what are the challenges to broadband availability for telehealth services. What are those existing and forthcoming challenges in the education system? What are the challenges for communities looking to have increased broadband as a means of economic development in their area? How does this affect tourism, and how can we get further broadband deployment in areas of tourism and natural interest here in the state? So at least we're all talking to one another and we're identifying what those challenges are, but certainly more work needs to be done in order to prioritize and begin to tackle those concerns.
Tremaine Phillips with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the commissioner for the Michigan Public Service Commission. Just a few more minutes here with you. In the show, I wondered too, what is the positive that is going to come out of this for the Public Service Commission?
Well, what we see as a positive is that I really do think that coming out of this pandemic, the state of Michigan and working in close partnership again with our representatives at the federal level and then with private companies here in the state, that we are going to come up with a very tangible, actionable plan to increase broadband deployment and access here in the state. And some of this work is already occurring through some of the federal stimulus packages related to the COVID-19 response, including the CARES Act. There were tens of millions of dollars that were assessed to the state of Michigan that will help us to not only increase that broadband deployment, but also help to put devices, internet-capable devices in students' hands so that those who have access to broadband but maybe don't have the tools in order to adopt that access, they will be able to get different means, tablets and computers, and able to do that. And then we also have some grants here in the state of Michigan that are helping to tackle this problem. One is the Connect Michigan Communities Grant. This was a $10 to $20 million fund that would help to deploy broadband, and some of those locations where that broadband deployment through that grant will be announced within the upcoming weeks. But through the budget process this year, we've actually now learned that this grant program will be funded into the next year as well. So those are just some of the opportunities that we're seeing that will be able to allow for that increased access to be built out. But again, this is going to be a challenge for us over the long term, and we're really going to have to put some dedicated time, energy, and money in order to solve this problem.
COVID-19 crisis, 6 months into it, and people are realizing internet access is a very, very needed service, just like our water, just like our electricity. Now we need access to reliable and stable internet services. What type of conversations, though, are being had around the security of the internet access that is being provided? Because we are hearing so much about hacking and Zoom bombing and things of those natures as well.
That is correct, and certainly that's something that the commission is interested in. It's not necessarily under our regulatory purview, at least in the telecoms arena. But, along with increasing the access to broadband and adoption, you also have to have a campaign. You have to have an education infrastructure to engage folks in digital literacy, understanding what are phishing scams, understanding what are these different consumer attacks towards their personal security that they must be aware of and be prepared for, because as you mentioned, this is certainly something that we're only seeing increase during the COVID-19 pandemic. There is an increasing number of consumer scams out there related to the federal stimulus response, and even in terms of getting vaccines and getting tests related to COVID-19. So this is very important that, along with the infrastructure side of this conversation and the affordability side of this conversation, that we also have an education campaign that's revolves around digital literacy and making sure that people use this capability in the safest means possible.
Yeah, because these scammers they're good. And just when you catch on to them, they change their game plan on us. Just about 2 minutes left real quickly. Anything you want to touch on that we didn't ask you about here on the Megacast?
Well, all I will say is that, we want to continue to have people look for those who are struggling either to find affordable access to broadband or are looking for broadband service providers. We want to encourage you to go to the Michigan Public Service Commission's website. Not only do we have links to the hotspot map, as well as links to telecommunications assistance services, but we are also the chief regulatory agency in the natural gas and electricity industries. And so if those residents, if those households are also struggling to find energy assistance, our home heating assistance, we have a host of other resources available on our website to really assist households and assist families during this challenging time. We know that there's a multitude of concerns that families face, and the commission has been doing its best in order to make that information available and ease as much as we can the eligibility requirements for Michigan customers and residents to be able to adopt those different assistance programs.
That's such important information to know, especially going into the colder weather months as well.
Absolutely.
Well, Tremaine Phillips with us here. He is the commissioner for the Michigan Public Service Commission. We thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Real quickly, again, before I let you go, give us the website for people to get those resources.
So they can visit the Michigan Public Service Commission website. On there, we have a consumer assistance and consumer interest page, and you can find all the links to energy and telecommunications assistance there.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Tremaine Phillips with us on the Oakland County Megacast. A great show here to start off this week and this Monday here, Tyler. A lot of great information. So we want to invite everyone. Just a reminder that if you were unable to catch all of the guests here on the Megacast, later this afternoon, Tyler and Jake are hard at work posting all of our interviews so that you can catch those as well.
Yeah, we do that all throughout the afternoon. Get the interviews done. We get the clips all up there for you so you can have specific interviews if you want to watch one versus the other, or if you just want quick little bites from the most important information from each of these interviews. That's all on our website, civiccentertv.com. Click on Megacast, and you'll have the options to watch a full episode our full episodes, our interviews, or our short clips.
Always, by the way, thank you to Tyler, Jake, Larry, the entire team here at the Oakland County Megacast. We want to say thank you. And again, just head over to civiccentertv.com for all the latest information, as well as if you missed any part of today's Megacast, or if you want to catch some of our previous and our past interviews as well. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe. We say thank you for tuning in to the Megacast, and a huge shout out as well to the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office for allowing us to be their Facebook partner of the day.